Hello, I'm Chris Gubber, and this is a talk on using the tool Twine and how to use Twine in education. It's going to be a reflection on my own experiences of using Twine, what Twine is as well, fundamentally, what the game engine provides users. Um, so, a bit of background on the tool itself, some of my insights from about 5 years of using it now in education, as well as like talking about how I got into producing interactive fiction games and just diving a little bit more into what interactive fiction is and the fundamentals of why you might want to get involved in it, I suppose. So we're going to cover as I said, what is Twine. I'm going to go into a bit of a story about how I made my first Twine game, using initial failures as well as an example of what not to do. Then I'm going to go into quite a long segment about teaching Twine with examples of student work, which is going to cover my time when I first started experimenting with using Twine in an educational setting at Camp Recolata when I moved to Russia several years ago. And that'll be the longest section of the talk. And then shortly at the end, I'm just going to have a little bit of showing some of my latest Twine games I've made myself, and some tools I've been looking into creating in the open source for loading in 3D models in Twine. So just a little bit on one of my open source projects. But most of it will be about tips for how to teach Twine, and also obviously just an introduction to what Twine is. So who am I? Well, I describe myself as a man with too many hats. Uh, so jack of all trades, master of none in many respects. So I'm an artist and a writer, so visual artist, but also write. Written a few novellas, non-fiction as well, mostly philosophy and art theory and information theory and computing as well, like ethics, that sort of stuff. Art is just like painting digital, but also painting digital analog painting, basically just making a mess with paint. I love doing that. There's nothing more. Probably the most zen-like state I can achieve, I think. And then yeah, but my main day job, I don't really, make enough from painting to live off it. My main day job is as a teacher and also as a publisher. So I teach at Maxwell College as a lecturer, and I teach across department really. So I teach ICT and creative media, so a bit of the technical, more IT focused courses, and creative media, which is more focused on media creation and specifically related to game art, which I've been doing for about just under 2 years now, or a year and a half, I guess. That's a bit about me without getting into too much of a long winded explanation about all that. So, what's Twine? That's the $1 million question. It's an open source tool. It was created by a developer called Chris Klimas. I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's German, I think, for making interactive fiction and hypertext fiction. So we all know what a website is, I think. Hypertext is just the way that you can link web pages together on the web. It's available on all platforms as well, Twine. The key concept of it is a choose your own adventure story. If you've ever read one of those as a child, Twine is an engine, a game engine, which is extremely simple to pick up, and nearly anyone can pick it up in terms of the basics. But it allows you to, create these narrative experiences, which will work on phone, PC, anywhere really, anywhere that can open a HTML page in a browser session window. It'll work. And it does also allow you to experiment. There's several different formats you can have with Twine as well, without getting too far ahead of myself. So you can get heavy into the technical side, but as an entry level user, you don't have to, which is why it's so good for education because it offers that flexibility. You know, if you do want to go into like coding, your own CSS and JavaScript functionality, you can do that. But also, if you just want to like create a beautiful prose story and not focus too much on the visuals, that's that's easy to achieve. Like it's the engine doesn't get in the way basically. And yeah, as you can publish it directly to HTML, you can just post it anywhere basically, any machine. I thought I'd just play this clip just as from a film. Finding Forrester is a wonderful, I think, to be honest, underrated film starring Sean Connery. I'll just show this because I think it's just good in a way into like just thinking about the process of writing.
Why are your socks inside out?
Because socks are badly designed. The seams are on the inside, hurt the toes. In some cultures, it's considered good luck to be wearing something inside out.
And you believe that?
No, but it's like praying. What do you risk? And I do go outside. How do you think those windows get cleaned? Now, about this professor of yours. How did it feel having him tell you what you can't do?
Like he knew he was better than me.
Then let's show him what you can do. Why is it the words we write for ourselves are always so much better than the words we write for others? Move. Sit. Go ahead.
Go ahead and what?
Write.
What are you doing?
I'm writing. Like you'll be when you start punching those keys. Is there a problem?
No, I'm just thinking.
No. No thinking. That comes later. You write your first draft with your heart. And you rewrite with your head. The first key to writing is to write, not to think.
Jesus.
So yeah, that was. I think that's like a good just introduction. I think to writing in general, and just I think a very basic philosophy of like creative work that I think most creatives understand, but sometimes people forget is that sometimes you just gotta do stuff. You gotta if you're in a block. There's a so-called dreaded creative block. You just gotta just do something, even if it's crap. You have to just do something, right? So, again, this is more a bit of an extension of talking about just a bit about my own relationship to writing and how it's always been one of my favorite ways of being in this world. To be honest, with writing. So yeah, I wasn't really an exceptional student at school. I was pretty average overall across the board. One thing that I definitely enjoyed and was aware of enjoying was creative writing in English. So my English skills are actually um, mixed, to be honest. I mean, I got like C's for English in school, but I did often, where I did get praise, it was due to my imagination. Um, but I'm not really like a technical like a technical writer. I can communicate poetically in prose and like I've written poetry. I know quite a lot about technical forms of poetry as well, and like I studied poetry sort of like semi-formally for like a few years. Um, but I have an almost well, I'm not diagnosed dyslexic, but I do have sometimes issues with processing text, definitely. So um, that can be an issue, or what definitely was an issue when I was younger. So yeah, I'm not a natural technical writer in terms of prose, but like I said, I have quite an imagination. Yeah, I used to. One of my earliest memories, which I still quite remember quite vividly, actually, is writing this story when I was about 6 or 7 about a ghost house, and it was one of my most treasured items. And I did all the drawings for it, and like all the writing, the paragraphs about. I can't remember exactly. Obviously, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but yeah, I used to. And I had definitely was drawn to the Gothic from an extremely young age, like anything about ghost pirates, ships, or and quite a macabre. I was drawn to the macabre, I suppose. Not necessarily even in a like a way that's disturbing. Even I think because there can be I think for certain young people. There's always the cliche like the kid that draws like violent pictures is messed up or whatever. I wasn't quite like that. I was more um, just a like a healthy fascination with the dark and the mysterious, I guess. But anyway, yeah, I read a lot of vampire literature when I was off secondary school age, primary school age, and it was an escape for me really, and but also allowed me to just explore fantasy, but also ideas, and I really found that compelling. It was like one of the only things I really enjoyed in school. Anyway, I studied IT at college, and then I eventually got an applied computing degree. Um, just fast forwarding a lot, but yeah, basically, and then to did that, and then I basically fell into more or less developing web applications eventually. So yeah, typical developer working on software. Maybe sometimes I'll be doing database maintenance or development, and I had a bit of time doing tech support as well. Worked for various charities. Then actually moved more into the private sector. To be honest, there's more money there. In the games sector, I worked for a games company for a while. Doing like full stack web app development, which I did for most of my career, really. And I still do develop. I'm still am a developer, but it's it's less professional now, obviously, because I'm a teacher full time. As a very typical student photo of me as well at Manchester Met, where I studied in the student union bar, I think it was. Um. Anyway, so yeah, in the year 2015, um, I just wanted to develop the knowledge I had managed to gather just by messing around a bit. So I started learning a bit about the Play Canvas engine because I already knew a bit of JavaScript. I wasn't too bad at it, and I had done a bit of jQuery and was getting a lot better with vanilla JavaScript. And Play Canvas is an API for doing programming, so I thought, well, I'll have a crack at that. So yeah, I wanted to basically create 3D games with that, um, and create some sort of media product. But before I go into the game that I eventually did create with Twine, I did have a very ambitious plan to create a game called Rat in a Maze. I want to just give this first as an example on how not to create your first game project. This project is a third or fourth project for an experienced game developer, I think would be appropriate and it would be doable. But if you're, what I'm saying is you have to start realistically. Anyway, let's go forward. So this is actually from the development phase. I've somehow still got this available. So this is brainstorming features for Rat in a Maze. So mind mapping out some of the features I thought would be useful. Brainstorming all those ideas out as well. Trying to determine break down into all the different features that would be implemented. So as you can see, just from shallow glance at that. There's quite a lot of complexity there, which as a solo dev would be extremely hard to properly implement, I guess. Okay, it's working. Cool. Yeah, which is as a solo dev, especially, would be extremely hard to properly implement. We've got environmental challenges, so that damage, taking damage, weapon selection. Yeah, basically just get FPS, but not really shooter. It was going to be more of a stealth-based narrative game. Was the idea of it? But yeah, it turns out there was actually quite a lot to do for one dev doing this as a side project on the weekends and the evenings when working at a national charity in London as a full-time web support officer, as I was doing at the time when I was living down in London. But I mean, I actually did learn quite a bit. Um, you know, there's massive issues still with this screenshot. Even if you look at it, like the texture stretching on the wall, for example. But you can see that I'm sort of you can see there's an aesthetic idea there, and you know, I sort of figured out how to do like use the editor and play canvas to arrange levels and also to patch scripts, and I started to get some basic idea of how to use a modern day game engine. And like I do a lot of work with Unity now and Unreal, for example, but this was really my entry point into it in the modern era. I did have a little bit of a background in the never went to night to build engine way back in the day, but I haven't got time to go into that. But yeah, this did not work. So it was too ambitious. Um, you know, for one developer just doing more or less doing the whole share of the work would have just been too much. So I thought I need to like refocus. I actually want to get a game made. I want to finish something. So I figured just focus on narrative, like focus on telling a story rather than trying to create also 3D rendering and everything else. Just focus on telling a story with some art. So that's how the failure of Rat in a Maze led to the birth of Glitch in 2016. So it's initially a really vague idea. I went into it really blind. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just basically just went onto my computer and started typing out the most random sentences that I could imagine. Very like loosely linked ideas, almost in a schizophrenic way in some respects. Um, just a very trickstery sort of like language, all language games really. So it was a language game type game at first, but also just pure absurdism. Like even when I was doing some of the branches that I was creating, I was like, what the hell? What am I even on about? But that was sort of the idea. And so it started off like very much just the jarbled, almost naked lunch style, Burr's cut up technique, garbled, spewing of thoughts basically in surrealist fashion, I guess. Um, so there's a little video here. I won't play all of this because it's too long, but this is the early version of it. And I'll just get some video. This is obviously a mate of mine, Jez, my housemate at the time, testing it out. I figured even at that point, like it's important to do play testing. Like I need to actually test this on someone, otherwise I don't know what it is. Is it just too out there, or anyway? This is like the initial play test we did. I won't play all of it. It's like 6 minutes long, but
Yes, I have. You're a glitch. The universe has chosen you. Oh, is this like? Hang on. Glitch. Enter. Glitch. Fuzzy screen. Most likely, I'd enter. Welcome to mainframes. Okay. Do you require input? Do you require output? Do you know who you are? Do you want to read a joke? What's a joke? It's a joke. Like, oh, am I for or against life being a joke?
so yeah, it was like had some very, very loose structure there, but it was essentially just getting to these branches where I was just making pithy, kind of nihilistic jokes. So that idea pretty rapidly ran out of steam, and I just thought, okay, it's gone a bit too much up his arse now. Looks like that makes sense. Also, I lost a bunch of work as well, so I can't remember how it happened, but I ended up losing a bunch of work, like a few days of work actually. So I had to like go back to the drawing board. So figured, you know, when you want to like when you're working on game design, most instead of like automatically going, oh, I need to refactor everything. Often, I think the best way to approach it is to simplify it. To be honest, so again, going back to what I originally wanted to do, which wants to have good graphics and a good story. So, on that respect, I decided that aesthetics, I need to create a strong and consistent visual style. That's the important thing, actually, is consistency and strong across the experience, and that's one of the key factors of a game. Like when you think in your mind of a game that you really loved, like say for example, I really like Red Alert. For example, Command and Conquer, Red Alert. There's a consistent style and tone through those games, which I automatically think of when I think of those games, right? So again, like aesthetics are essential, and that's true for interactive fiction games as any other type of game, to be honest. And you can focus less on the visual aspect. I personally am not an interactive fiction designer who likes doing that. I actually like pushing the boundaries of the visual, especially as a visual artist. It's one of my main interests, and I think for nearly every single player, that is going to be a bonus. Consistent narrative too. So instead of it being a sort of like borderline schizo rant, it needs to be some core narrative. There needs to be some idea there. There needs to be like a setting. There needs to be a place. You as the player need to like have a few cues, I guess. And then it just needs to be some elements of play. Like before, there was just nothing. It was just a bunch of random, like I said, like semi-nihilistic, Dadaist poetry, which is fine, but not when you're trying to create a story. So I also wanted to, but I did want to like take stock of what was actually good in the original design. So I thought the surrealist questioning, like machine-like mystery of the narrative was quite interesting, and some of the initial elements are done in the visual work have this glitch art and sort of absurdist art feeling. So develop this into like a 90s cyberpunk influenced aesthetic. Drawing heavily on obviously the Matrix, Ghost in the Shell, the classics. Use GIMP for that, the GNU image manipulation program, and then I created a custom CSS layout with to nail the look, like typical link colors. Obviously, the background with the Matrix, which is animated. Actually, you can't see it on the screenshots, but it is animated. And yeah, just create a consistent CSS style across the entire project. And then I implemented a lot of interactive media, so I actually did quite a lot of actual edited videos, which also fit in. So there was not every passage you went on to had a video, but there was it was sort of like an interactive film as well. Trying to strike a balance, basically. And yeah, the narrative then basically evolved pretty naturally. It became a philosophical investigation into the nature of the self. It's and told through the prism of a fictional cyberpunk universe and like a speculative story about consciousness and what consciousness is. And I think it basically is. I was trying to like blur the line a bit between conventional storytelling and like a lot of mindfuckery, basically. Because before, with the early version, there was far too much mindfuckery. There was too much mindfuckery. It was being too mindfuckery for its own good. Whereas it needed some like formal elements of structure in the narrative, right, to work. And yeah, and I was pretty happy with it, to be honest. This is a trailer for it. So yeah, Glitch launched December 2015. I think I launched, I just uploaded it onto itch.io, and that was that. Still up there now, in fact. This though, I wanted to show you because this is, I think, very important and very makes it very intuitively understandable about how different Twine projects look. Because one of the important things to know with Twine is that you have different formats, which is a strength. And just standard HTML is just obviously supported because it renders out to HTML, right? But this video, if I just click on play on this, it should very nicely demonstrate how different templates you can, different formats you can apply different styling techniques. So this is actually the Twine, well, the HTML file opened up in Twine for Glitch. And I've got, like I said, I got the custom styling on this one. So I think this is using Sugar Cube. Sugar Cube is like a bit more of a minimalist format, so it's much more for specialists who know how to write HTML and CSS. So it's much more of a technical based template, right? Template format, sorry. And then I can look at Tammy's Tale. This is built with Chatbook, which is a completely different format. So you can see you got a very, very different way it's been laid out there, because it's using specific features from the format. The Chatbook's the one I use most of the time now. Actually, didn't actually exist when Glitch came out, but yeah, Chatbooks are nice, really nice in the middle because you can do really technical stuff with Chatbook if you know what you're doing. But also, you can also get quite advanced functionality without having to do any programming really. But it also does offer like a lot of very powerful, I think, functionality. So it is my go-to now. Some more, but yeah, and like one of the things with Twine that's easy is that if you got a HTML file of a Twine project, you can actually just load it in. So if you want to, for example, look at, maybe you see a game that you like, you can probably load it in and inspect it. But anyway, I've created my first Twine game. Obviously, this is a talk about Twine and how I used it in education. So now I'm going to go into that. Now I'm going to go into this by talking about like how I started on that journey as well. So it's going to be partially covering again how I've used the Twine in education, but also methods and like what I found that's useful, but also go a bit into my own personal story as well. Anyway, so I've created Twine, created Glitch, and here's the next chapter. So basically, I was living in Sheffield a while back. started dating this woman called Yulia. And I'm going to go a bit into the story of that. Because I ended up basically in Russia. Teaching English. Which was a bit of a departure. I mean, I was still like working on development. Just working on developer projects. And that was my main source of income. But as Yulia was an English teacher, sort of got drawn into that world. I mean, I'd always written, but had always written, but obviously having to teach English is quite different. And I hadn't taught much before. Like I taught a petals qualification. I'd taken a petals qualification when I was working for Disability Information Bureau in Maxfield. So I had some exposure with like teaching methodologies and pedagogy and stuff, but not really like put those skills into action in any meaningful sense for a long time. So yeah, I went off to Russia. Me and Lila did the long-term thing, long distance thing for a while. But we wanted to be together. We'd spoken online for a while. We were just pen pals basically at the start, but then it did turn into a relationship after we met in real life. Basically, long story short, I went to Russia, I got a work visa, and became an English teacher and a camp counsellor. And I worked the summer term as well as the winter camp. And this is where I began my experimenting with Twine. There's just, I'm not going to spend too long on this, but these are just a few photos from life on the camp. So on the left here, we've got Yulia next to there was like a weird tank that was on site. There's me on that tank as well. A few snaps from the Winter Wonderland. So we're in the winter camp. It was really, really cold, but snowy. That guy there in the red jacket's called Alexei, he's a big boss, camp administrator. So we're on the left. This is one of the other camp counsellors, Andrew. Julia as well on the right. Julia was like the head teacher basically. Look, the lead teacher. And there's me and some students. And then I've created a quick little video to show just like a little bit about that.
Yes!
It's very cold.
Would you like an ice cream?
Yet. No, man.
What?
Da.
Da what?
Yeah. Stop cold. I don't know what cold is. Cold it's. I don't know. What is it? What's cold? Hello, I'm Chris. I'm going to Recolata for winter
Recolata.
camp.
Recoleta. It's Recoleta.
Recolata
Yes.
for winter camp this year. I have a visa.
You're even legal. Wow.
Living for today.
Телевизор, я пишу тебе письмо про то, что больше больше не могу смотреть на дерьмо, про то, что больше нет сил, про то, что я почти забил, но не забыл тебя. Про то, что телефон звонил, хотел, чтобы я встал, оделся и пошел, а точнее побежал. Но только я его послал, сказал, что болен и устал, и эту ночь не спал. Я жду ответа, больше надежд нету. Кончится лето. Четвертый день, хотя по радио сказали, жарко будет даже тень. Впрочем, в той тени, где я пока и сухо и тепло, но я боюсь пока. Дни идут чередом, день едим, а три пьем. Мы в общем весело живем, хотя и дождь за окном. Магнитофон сломался, я сижу в тишине, чему и рад вполне.
Absolute keynote, am I right? Okay, so I'm going to talk now. Well, I'm going to show some of the my experiences of working with workshopping English with Twine Macambria Colata, and I'll go into this a little bit later, but I think it is important to remember as well when you are teaching Twine, like what's the what's the actual primary subject you're trying to teach when you teach it. So, for example, workshopping English, it makes sense to do creative English. So the focus isn't so much on the technical side. That's a good thing to add, but focus is on getting them to improve their English by doing something that's fun, basically. So we're gonna look at that. I've got to look up a lot of archive material from this time. So instead of me just yabbering on and showing a slideshow, I've just got literally when I was on the ground. So I'll just play it log because it's honestly the best way to just to show you what I was doing out there in Russia, and then I will summarize some of this.
How I usually do it is I do these drawing plans and then I convert it on the computer into Twine. I do the artwork as well, so they do the development story and the music as well. What are you doing? Drawings for the story, drawings for the Twine story. Is it a demon? Demon?
Да.
Demon!
Ну, типа такого.
So just do some drawings for the Twine story. Hello, Gleb. Mr. Gleb. What's your story about then?
The story is a horror story.
A horror story?
Yes. It's about a demon in the window and me.
And you as well. You're in it. You're a character in it, yeah.
Me and my friends.
Your new friends, yeah. So a classic horror story. What do you think?
Go further.
Wait? Oh, you can only wait on this one. Which one?
Go further.
You saw the house. In this house, you saw a terrible silhouette. That's a good word, by the way. It was the devil. That's a spelling mistake, actually. Fortunately, we were in tall women boots. In the room of 4 rooms. Which room do you enter? Which one?
I don't know.
Acid? Water? Lava? Sharks? Don't know. Acid?
I know. Yes.
You won. So, finished the Twine workshop now. I'm starting to put them all, get them all up on the website, recoloutostories.com, which you can check out. Put a link up here somewhere. Interesting range of stories in this first session. We do more because I'm here for 12 weeks, but interesting range of stories. Especially my favourite, I think, is probably there's a story called Bakery Revolution, where they took the idea of revolution. It's almost like I've got a political aspect of it, really, which is quite interesting. And they did some really, the 2 guys that worked on that did some really interesting artwork, like comic book style. So it's sort of blended interactive fiction because it had like comic book elements and sort of absurd but silly but interesting story, which was like you steal this bagel and a lot of bread from what I remember, and then there's a whole load of these random events of police chasing you and stuff that happened. I guess sort of informed by like Grand Theft Auto, and interesting enough inspired by recent political events in Russia, like protests at airports and stuff. So I thought that was quite interesting. And we had a story about space, because the whole theme of our session on it is space. So one of the groups did a story where you had to explore a planet. You either choose Mars or Venus, based on what and then the whole idea is to basically interact with these new alien species. The Mars storyline was very well developed. The Venus one was sort of like they sort of approached it in the sense that the Mars story would develop very well, and you can have 2 endings, a few different endings that way, a few different endings where you die, and 2 endings where you basically make peace with these aliens. The Venus story was a little undeveloped maybe, but I think they did that to sort of catch you off guard. But basically, the Venus story, there's no real way to win, from what I could tell. But that had a very good branching structure actually for the age of the group that were doing it, like 12-year-olds basically. But yeah, it's been interesting, and I'm still trying to develop how I do these workshops, Twine workshops of interactive fiction. Sometimes, having the example of an already existing library is useful, because I've been doing it over the past 2 years with other groups. It's been very useful because it gives the students something to refer to and a sort of starting point. So that's very useful. And having a website and an archive is also very useful. I think in the future, probably when I can, for longer projects, probably utilise different engines as well. Even though Twine's very good. Twine's good because it's so easy to use. They basically the way it usually proceeds is that we plan it out on paper, and then I usually edit it in Twine. Though we have done it because of time constraints. Really, if you're working with a large group, it can be very difficult to, next to impossible really, to get them all to build something in Twine, because we've got limited resources as well, only my laptop. But we manage, and they usually understand once they get there, and they sort of intuitively understand what a Choose Your Own Adventure story is. But yeah, so I'll showcase some of the games, talk a bit about those. I've already mentioned Bakery Revolution, and there's another one that was called, I think, Brainless. It's quite a short adventure, but it's basically a story where they often do games where you choose 2 doors. I think because of the example game. There's another game called Locked Door, which is sort of a short adventure, random game about going through different doors as well. I guess because it's a very easy example. But yeah, I was very pleased with the Bakery Revolution game. That was really cool. I've still got a few more to develop still. so I've not seen all of them yet properly, but it's been a pretty interesting workshop and something I'd so like I guess like I'll talk a bit about a few tips if you want to do this yourself as a sort of interactive fiction Twine workshops. Like, what are some tips for running it? So I guess try and inspire their imaginations, but also keep it quite realistic too. You want to manage expectations, because sometimes, you know what kids are like, sometimes their imaginations go wild and they think that they can create GTA or something like that. Or something, not necessarily that extreme, but they just manage their expectations of what they can actually create. In my instance, the main exercise really is to improve their English, so it's more about trying to encourage them to write well. Then sort of gaming elements can be a secondary thing there, really. Though that obviously is obviously the ideal is if they develop a good narrative, a good story, and also a good game design aspect. So like good, interesting narrative that's interesting to explore, multiple endings and stuff is good to develop. The artwork side of things is pretty self-explanatory, really. Just they know that, they just draw artwork. Often they draw titles, which is good as well. Encourage them to do that, I suppose. And the comic book style is very interesting when they do that sort of like a comic book strip. It makes it much more enjoyable to play their games as well, so if they have time to do that, I encourage them to do that, I suppose. Lastly, I think I've already mentioned, then have a example. Like when I first started doing these Twine workshops, I produced a game called Hello to Baba Yaga, which is a very simple multiple endings game where you talk to a witch, and there's multiple different endings in that example, and that can be quite useful because it's just they can just go on their phone or computer, play an example, and they will get the idea 10 times faster than explaining it or trying to explain it. One of the difficulties I have often is that as I'm in a camp in Russia, I'm working with very mixed levels of English comprehension, so that can be a real challenge sometimes, but I guess the real key thing is to break it down as simplistic language as possible in terms of like the concept of what they actually have to do. But in general, I'm quite happy with the games they produced this time, and be interesting to see how I can develop it in the future. So I'll leave it at that, and I've been Noah Nerd. Check out Record Art Stories if you want. You can play all the games on there. One of them is from Copy Cube as well. One of them is in another interactive fiction engine, Twine Builder, but the majority of the games are on Twine, so you can just play them on your web browser. I've been on Nerd, and I'll leave it at that. It's very rainy. It's sunny all day actually, but it's rainy. It's a classic British way.
So yeah, just to summarise that, focus on storytelling and creative writing in English. If you're teaching an English as a second language, the focus is on proper use of the English language. Model concepts of example games. Oh, use this. Go away. I'm not. Ugh. Model concepts of example. What the fuck? What's this? Model concepts with an example game. So, yeah. Hello to Baba Yaga was the example that I gave them. So it just gives them, they can play it first before so they have an idea then of what they're actually expected to create. So you're giving them a, here's an end result at the start, and then that gives them an idea of what they actually have to create. Because, obviously it's very difficult explaining it in a foreign language. It's difficult enough explaining interactive fiction and Twine to your average person in English. So you've really got to hit them with like a very, very strong visual metaphor. Because if you can get a visual metaphor right, or just like purely just a good visual aid, then that's from a lot of your learners that will communicate a lot more than the spoken word. You can rely on less in it if you're with mixed ability language learners. Anyway, yeah. And the way I did it in terms of the actual having them map it out, it's not to have them do it on an actual computer because we just didn't have the computers for that, but to do it on paper and then to think in teams as well. So usually they would be in teams of 3 or 4, or up to 5, and you'd have maybe a few of them do the drawing. Maybe one of them would be the project manager, and then maybe one of them or 2 of them concentrate on doing the actual story. But yeah, that again, that gives them that opportunity to work in groups and find their strengths, I suppose. And then yeah, I just converted those maps, those actual physical maps, into Twine, into the Twine game engine. And if what needed to add any CSS or JavaScript, did that. So those worked pretty well for me, I'd say. Like I said, because of the time constraints, I've got to be really, really on it, but it worked doing that, to be honest. It was sometimes a bit of a heavy workflow. We had a lot of groups, but it did work overall. I'm going to show just a quick clip of this. So this is just a video of some of the students' projects, but also we had a session where I got them to review other students' projects and give it a rating, so getting to think of it critically. Now, this wasn't really always the main aim of the actual teaching, but again, it doesn't hurt to have an exercise like this where they're going to have to start applying their critical faculties. Obviously, this was a very informal context, but I did experiment with that with some of the stronger ability learners. That's the result of this one. That's right.
It has 2 parts. In the first part, Annabelle and her parents were moving from their old house. On the way, they were in accident. Annabelle fell into a coma and you have to save Annabelle. I liked that we chose a garden, and I think the story is interesting. Music is mysterious and creepy. But the game has no graphic. In one place you can turn left or right and it doesn't change anything. Although I saw one mistake in the text, but it doesn't matter because it's just erratum. The second part is a continuation of the first part. There is more chances to die than in the first part. It makes the second part more adventure. I like the fragment where the creatures used a tunnel. And I liked the end of the story when she woke up and all of this was only dreams. I didn't notice any other mistakes, so I think this is very good game. But if creatures with add graphic, it will be better. And this is all I wanted to say. And music 5, graphic 2, story 5, and total 4.
Brilliant.
Слушают хардбас-басы. Это стал любимый Шкинси в ритме колбасы. 150 ударов тут, пацаны спортивка жгут. Школа танцев учит вас правильно плясать хардбас. В клубе до утра топтать и ничего не принимать. Будьте рады из беды, наши злейшие враги. На площадке джаз-класс отожгем для вас хардбас. Приведите ребенка к нам, или будет наркоман. Приводи прямо сейчас, пацаны, давай хардбас. Приведите ребенка к нам, или будет наркоман. Найка этих выдай вдох, танцуй хардбас, если не лох. Яу-яу-яу, с вами школа колбасы, ребятки. Это школа хардбаса, пацаны. Спортивочки Nike.
The story about Gopinahead made me laugh so much, especially because of music. But knowledge of Russian language in this song was very disturbing for understanding the story. The story was good and was written so well. Also, there are a lot of different endings, so it makes the game more interesting and exciting. But the game has no graphics, so you can improve this game by adding maybe graphic. I think the game will be more interesting. So that's all I wanted to tell you. And music 2, graphic 3, story 5, overall 4.
Good.
So yeah, that's the end of the talk, really. As you can just tell from that last clip, the actual diversity of stories you get is amazing with Twine. Twine facilitates that basically. It facilitates the making that into an interactive, memorable experience. And something they can always come back and play on as well. All those games are archived. Actually, you can find them on itch.io, the Recolata games. And obviously, I've done work in the college as well with Twine. That's slightly more formal context, obviously. So, but I mean, the formative ways that I was able to figure out how to use Twine in education was definitely formed in Recolata. How it's different at my college actually is there's much more focus obviously on design. Story is important to that, but it's the overall media product as a whole which is more important. So the students there are pushed more to think about color theory, graphics, digital art, that kind of thing. But yeah, okay, that's that.